I started asking prospective clients about how they were going to be doing analytics on the blockchain. And I got that rabbit in the headlamps look. And they said, what's a blockchain? So I realized I was a little bit ahead of the game. And so that's where I started focusing on the fact that most people don't even know what a blockchain is, let alone how to use it. So I realized that education was first needed. And that's why I formed Distalytics. So let me give you a little bit of background. First of all, I'm an emerging technology consultant, which means I help senior managers and executives understand what the latest technologies, such as blockchain, AI, Web3, and data analytics are, and importantly, what the opportunities and risks are that they pose. And I use my experience of what I've done over a number of years now, we'll talk about that in a minute, to help them to avoid the many pitfalls with technology strategy and implementation. So I work with clients, but some big names: Barclays Investment Bank, Lloyd's of London, Zurich Insurance, Tokyo Marine, various regulators around the world, and a couple of governments as well. And I run workshops, webinars, present at conferences, that kind of thing. So a real mixed bag. But in order to have reached that level, I went through something of a journey. And so it may be worthwhile quickly explaining where I come from, and your viewers and your listeners may well resonate with this in some way. So I originally started going to events in London in about 2014, where they were beginning to talk about Bitcoin, blockchain, and it was a really buzzing experience. There were loads of people talking about how it's going to change the world and it's going to revolutionize financial services and everything. And I remember one of the speakers on stage started talking about blockchain and Bitcoin. And I'll admit, I didn't actually understand most of what they were talking about, but it did sound like something that was going to be really important and really interesting. So I kind of hung in there and carried on listening. And then I started going to more events. And it was the same each time. Lots of buzz, lots of geekery, but complete bafflement about what on earth they were talking about and what all these words meant and everything. So I started doing my own research, and it was very difficult to find good quality material. But I did find some. I read books, articles, blog posts, watched YouTube videos and that. And I quickly learned all I could. And I finally realized that a lot of the time, I hadn't understood the presentations from the speakers because a lot of them were either overly technical or they didn't know what they were talking about themselves. So they were kind of flagging it a little bit. And so I then created my own company called Distalytics. And we'll talk about the name and where it came from later. And I started asking prospective clients about how they were going to be doing analytics on the blockchain. And I got that rabbit in the headlamps look. And they said, what's a blockchain? So I realized I was a little bit ahead of the game. And so that's where I started focusing on the fact that most people don't even know what a blockchain is, let alone how to use it. So I realized that education was first needed. And that's why I formed Distalytics. Now, my passion is about helping people to build their knowledge and skills beyond what they believe possible. And so I say now that Distalytics provides clarity about technical terms, and I distill the complexity into clear and simple explanations. So I previously had a career in permanent roles, spanning about 30 years in industries like retail, pharmaceuticals, commodities, and insurance. And these are all about implementing emerging technologies. So that background has given me a lot of confidence in what I do. And so now my niche area is in insurance. I've worked with an insurance syndicate for a number of years, and I ran an innovation work stream with Lloyd's of London, where we actually started looking at emerging technologies like distributed ledger and so on to see how we could modernize the market. And now I'm currently helping a North American startup in digital asset custody. So everyone's talking about private keys and the metaverse and wallets and that. Well, how do you actually store a lot of the things on that securely, and how do you provide custody of digital assets? So that's kind of my journey in a way. So now I'm at the point where I've got a technology background, I'm comfortable across lots of industries, and I can translate some of the geekery into easily understood words. It's very much the company is founded on my principles. So I provide three things, which is education, consultancy, and advisory services. And I set up the consultancy, which is a company, to provide the education initially, and then provide the consultancy, but it's all actually done through me. So it's quite difficult at times to separate Gary Nutall, the person, from Distalytics, the company, and I realise there's a big overlap. So think of Distalytics being the consultancy that provides the education and training, and it's Gary who stands on the stage. A lot of technology people do things the wrong way around. That they come along with the technology and they try and find a problem to solve with it, and that's why you find a lot of time that they struggle. And this is very true with what I'm seeing at the moment with Web3 and with blockchain, that a lot of people are saying, oh, well, this will solve all sorts of problems, but they're not necessarily problems that are big enough for companies to worry about. So the trick is, if you want organizations to adopt new technology, then make sure it's a big enough problem that causes them enough trouble in some way. So at the moment, there's a lot of regulatory change going on in the UK around things like disaster recovery and business continuity. Well, that's something that if you're operating using decentralized and distributed systems, that provides you with some resilience. So in the UK, there's a Digital Operational Resilience Act that's just gone live. Well, a blockchain-based solution might actually fit quite well for that. So it's about looking at what the actual problems are and then trying to work out the technologies, rather than coming along with technology and saying, hey, what can we use this for? And it's ultimately as well, make people's lives easier, simpler, more cost effective, and they'll adopt the technologies. I always say, as an evangelist, I'm doing my job right if nobody knows what the technology is, because they don't need to. They just get on with it. I sometimes joke that if you draw a Venn diagram of a few circles, and one of them says emerging technology, and another circle says insurance, then where they overlap, it says Gary Nutall. Okay, so that is my kind of core. It is about distributed ledger technology, Web3, in insurance primarily. So I've worked with a number of insurance companies about looking at how to improve claims experience with emerging technologies. I've worked with a project where they went through the FCA Innovation Sandbox, looking at improving things like travel delay insurance. So insurance is kind of my sweet spot, definitely the core area. And I've got various contacts in commercial insurance land still. So insurance is particularly fascinating. For those who don't know how insurance works, it's actually an industry that's been around for about 350 years. And commercial insurance, so this is like insuring things like aircraft, ships, containers, space satellites, things that go bang, as I describe it. That's all based on what's known as the Lloyd's of London insurance market, and that can trace its origins back quite literally to a coffee shop in London about 350 years ago. And the reason that they need to change is that they've not changed the business processes, which actually means they work. Okay, so the way that they have underwriters and they pool risks and everything, that model works. What they do need to change is how they use technology, so that they've only just kind of computerized in some ways. So if you used to go into the Lloyd's of London building on Lime Street in the city of London, you'd see people walking around with big folders of paper. So they were still writing paper contracts. That's now electronic. So that started them on the journey of digitization. So what I do now is I work with companies looking at well, now you've digitized things, how can you use, whether it's Web3 or blockchain or whatever, to improve that journey in some way? So one of the great things about a blockchain solution, for example, is that it's immutable, so it can't be changed, and everyone's looking at the same data at the same time. That significantly reduces the number of occurrences you get of which version of which document are you looking at, and does it include this clause and all that kind of thing. So that's a great time saving. And then I've worked with companies as well, looking at things like smart contracts. Smart contracts being small computer programs that sit on a blockchain in which you can embed business logic so that it's repeatable and consistent and trustworthy as well. So that can save a lot of time as well.
Amazing. And it sounds like you do have a lot of demand, and there's a lot of ways that you can work with people. So I guess the next question would be, how much does it kind of cost to work with you, and what's the process?
So the cost depends on the budget and the nature of what the work is. But certainly I provide what I would consider market rates, business analysis and project management capabilities. So what that means is, if people bring me on board, they've got a well-experienced project manager who can do business analysis and who understands the technology. And there's not many of us for that. So the rates kind of vary on that. But in terms of getting in touch and working with me, I just say Google Gary Nutall emerging technology. And I think the first full page of every single Google query result will find me, and it'll be LinkedIn, it'll be Twitter, it'll be wherever. So usually I say to people, just contact me on LinkedIn.
Amazing. And if somebody is watching this and they're like, I really want to get started, do you have some sort of like offer or lead magnet kind of thing for them that they can kind of get in contact with you, or how would you?
What I tend to do with organizations is that they tend to want to have an initial taster in some way. So I do provide webinars, which are like 1 hour introductory training courses where we cover the subjects that they want to do. So it might be about blockchain or analytics. And then I use that to build from there, because sometimes that might be enough. They might actually say after an hour, actually, we don't think we're going to need to use that, or it's not going to benefit us. So in just 1 hour, they probably save themselves an awful lot of pain and effort. And then for others, they'll say, well, we've spent an hour doing this. We'd like to understand how this could apply to our business now. So that's where I engage as a consultant, go in, run workshops with them, help them to understand things more.